And parents want to keep their children for a long time.
Oh my
So
God.
it's like I don't want my kids to grow up too fast, but I want them to have economics. I want them to understand the way that the
Hmm.
life is, Not
Hmm.
everybody's going to be there giving to you, and you don't need to depend on other people. Like, those are basic skills, but I feel like our parents not teaching us what we need to know is not really them insulting our path. It's more they weren't taught those things either.
What up, what up, what up? It is your girl J-Belle. I'm here with my girl Sam. We are on episode 3 now of Ish My Psychic Says. It's the second season. Last week we talked about how to not shrink yourself. Hopefully you've listened to that episode. Please listen to our episodes. We trying to make this a big, big thing. We are going to make this a big, big thing. But this week we are talking about if life had a tutorial, what would be in it? Meaning, like, if God put in front of you the instructions to your life, meaning exactly step by step everything, what would you do with yourself? Would you even follow it? And what would be a part of it? I think this is a big thing to talk about because when I think about adulting now versus when I was a kid, my parents ain't warned me about none of the shit that comes with being an adult. All they said is you need to slow down and be a kid. And being a kid is cool until you see, the things that adults could do when you were younger. That seems
Mhm.
fun. Now we're
Well,
adults,
Mhm.
and none of that shit is fun, okay?
Right. Yeah. The thing is that they tried before and they rapidly failed. Some people want a play by play of how life should be, but there's a lot of people who don't. Right. So I think it's a handful of, there's a collective of people who wish that, yes, I wish I would have known what I know. But if we did have a tutorial on how life was supposed to be, then what was the point of life to begin with? Because it's
Mm,
trial and error, right? And so
yeah.
we're going through these lessons, and it's more not the physical journey, but the spiritual journey of what you're supposed to accomplish in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, they did try to have that whole play by play of what and what not to do, which is the Bible, and a lot of people have pushed away from the Bible because of the control, the power, the
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I've met a lot of people over the years that were like, yeah, I loved going to church, and then this pastor, and then this person, and then they started to make this scripture such a hypocrisy,
Yeah.
right? So, not yeah, there is kind of a how should we live life. It's
Mm-hmm.
more religious based, it's in the Bible. But
Yeah.
like standard society, modern society, and people in the age range of us,
Yeah.
we have to do it blindfolded. And if you think about it, so did our parents. It was their first time to live, it's our first time to live.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be scary, in my opinion, as a psychic, if we all had, number one, I wouldn't have a job anymore. Number two, if we had a play by play of how life was supposed to play out, wouldn't that bring more violence and anger? Because if people already had it all figured out, wouldn't everyone think themselves as a god?
Ooh, that's a good question. Also, too, if you actually knew what your life was going to be about, then what would you learn in your life? What experiences could you really take in and learn something from if you knew this was going to happen already? In some cases and in some instances, yeah, we want to know. Like, I mean, the biggest question for a lot of people is, will I find the love of my life? Will I get that dream career? Will I have children? Will I be rich? These are the things that people ask all the time. And I think those kind of questions keep people going in the journey that they're on, which meaning like becoming a mother and a father, or like becoming a big business mogul and making millions of dollars, or just or living just a plain and simple life because that's what they strive to do. And nobody knows these things because they're not told to us. But if we did know and we could build something together with it, I think that things would probably be different. Like you said, there'd be a lot of violence because what if somebody's life is not what they thought it would be and they found that out beforehand? That can
Yeah.
make somebody very angry too.
Well, spiritual people believe, and I've heard it from other mediums and other spiritual leaders, practitioners, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
that even in religious, they say that you already know how your life is going to play out because you made a contract with God. And I'm sure everyone has heard that before, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you signed this contract, you already did, but you came back to life, therefore stripping it and having to go through it blindly, knowing that energetically that was this life's purpose. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're saying, if there was a tutorial, like what if we came to this plane knowing exactly what contract we made, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then fulfilling it, wouldn't it be scary if your life fulfillment had the chaos, the pain, the trauma, whatever it may be that affected you in a negative way? And what if you were not allowed to change it? What if you were supposed to know about it and have to
Mm-hmm.
go through it?
And that's what I mean by, like, if you knew everything that was going on with you and it didn't look like the way you thought it would, that could make somebody very, very angry, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. And so then you got things that are like life changing happening and you're not ready for them, but you already know it's coming regardless and you don't know how to prepare. Like, you can have
Yep.
the list in front of you, you can have the journey in front of you, but do you know how to actually get from point A to point B?
Right.
So yeah, those type of things can be very, very scary. Okay. So in this conversation that we're talking about, if life had tutorials in it, I think that the biggest things that we could talk about, we could go back and forth about a list all day. That if we knew, we had this list handed to us and we knew exactly what happened, how will we handle it? But what about the basic things that our parents never warned us about, right? Like things of paying bills and learning how to budget, or how to file your taxes, because I, I literally, all these things that I've just said, I had to figure it out myself. My dad, all he told me was, you better save your money. You better save your money. You got to pay your bills. You better save your money. I can literally make that into a song right now.
You should. You should do like a whole chop and screwed, you better save your money. And then
Because that's all I heard throughout my
but
entire
you need to record your dad's voice saying that and then chop and screw it. That would be a number one hit.
right. Like that would be it. Because one thing is for sure, like when I was growing up, I grew up with a single father. Like my mom was in my life, but she didn't help raise me. My dad did that on his own. So like growing up, my dad did everything himself. He budgeted, he paid the bills, he did all that. But he never sat me down, especially when I got ready to go off to college. And he would never say to me, okay, you're going off to college, you're working. This is what you need to do when you are now an adult, learning how to be on your own. You should save this. This is how you pay your bills. You need to pay your bills and then you need to save something for yourself. He never showed me how to file taxes either. And I had been working since I was 14. And so that's something I had to learn on my own.
Well, I mean, probably because he had to depend on other people to do it for him too. Like he had to go to a tax specialist, he had to do these things, he had to do that. So I feel that it's up to us to make that change. Like me, I have three kids and I
Hmm.
teach them these things. I teach them to be responsible. I tell them about money.
Yeah.
I tell them how they have to pour in order to get something. And so
Hmm.
it's your parent probably wasn't taught that themselves and they're just trying to figure it out. And parents want to keep their children for a long time.
Oh my
So
God.
it's like I don't want my kids to grow up too fast, but I want them to have economics. I want them to understand the way that the
Hmm.
life is. Not
Hmm.
everybody's going to be there giving to you and you don't need to depend on other people. Like those are basic skills, but I feel like our parents not teaching us what we need to know is not really them insulting our path. It's more they weren't taught those things either.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know they did the best they could with what they had. Now we're doing the best we can with what we have. But if we were to have a play by play of, I'm going to make an example. Let's say that you saw the play by play in your life, that you were just going to never make ends meet, you were always going to struggle with money, you were always going to have money issues. But then you were told by energy, like, okay, this is your play by play, you have
Hmm.
small little windows of chance and change,
Hmm.
but you can't really you can't really have the power to change all of it. You have to pick certain roads, like one of those chapter books where it's like, if you want this ending, go to this page. If you want that
Right.
ending, go to that page. If
Yeah.
we had that, I feel like it would be dangerous for people because people would have more ego and people wouldn't be humbled by experience and stay humble, because the
Hmm.
whole point of this life is to figure out your soul's journey and your soul's purpose. And if
Yeah.
we came into this life knowing that we were going to have material wealth or not have material wealth, then it would just change everything into greed, gluttony, like the seven sins.
Right. Right.
It
No, I
wouldn't be
and
about spiritual empowerment. It wouldn't be about finding you or being humbled by stuff to shrink ego, to not be stuck in ego. It would be all
mhm.
about people would be going around, I'm going to have the biggest house and the richest and the richest and the richest and richest. We would destroy this earth if we knew everything.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you on that. I guess the way that I think about it is like you said, our parents, they didn't necessarily had guidance. I know my parents didn't. But and when I'm thinking and when I'm saying this is that because of the fact that they didn't have much guidance, when it came to learning how to be an adult, you would think for a lot of parents, not just mine alone, that they would want to break that cycle and teach it better. Like you said, you went through some of that stuff and now you teach your kids those things. You make sure they know those things because you want to break that cycle. And I think for a lot of us, that's what we want from our parents, is to break that cycle instead of it being, you start breaking the cycle with your parents. Then you completely break the cycle with yourself when you decide to have kids, you know? And I feel like in my situation, I'm trying to learn how to do that with just me by myself. I don't have kids. I don't have to take care of nobody. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in a relationship. And with me, I feel like I'm learning how to be an adult, or like trying to figure out my tutorial later on in life, because I've been chasing something for so long, or chasing men for so long. Chasing men in a career for so long. And so there's like certain things that I honestly wish that I had a tutorial on, like how to deal with men, how to deal in the workplace, I had to teach myself how to cook, because
Yeah.
my parents did not teach me. My dad said to me straight up, I never taught you because you don't have enough patience, which, is kind of true.
Thanks, Dad.
Right? He's like, you don't have patience. The only thing he really taught me to make sure I knew how to do was do my laundry. And I learned how to do laundry at 8 years old, you
Yeah.
know? And so, like, there's other things that I wish that when it comes to my life tutorial, I had better directions in, like how to save money, how to budget better, how to handle um, bullies, period. Because you get bullies all your life, not just as a kid. You get them as adults too. You can't fight them and get suspended. You fight, you go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, as adults, because fighting with adults is a little bit more rougher than it is as kids.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like just thinking of those type of things, like, you have the Bible, and God kind of lays out how he built the world, or earth, in 7 days, and some of the things that we learn stories about different characters throughout the book, and we try to they give us kind of an outline of how they dealt with things, but this is a different world, and we deal with things like capitalism, socialism, which in a way is a good thing. We deal with conservatism. Now we got this whole Project 2025 crap that's going down, that's trying to lay out a lifelong tutorial of how we as Americans should be. And so, like you try to think of all these different things of, even though you don't have a straight up list of things in front of you, you have a mind, and you're trying to figure it out in your mind. How do I handle these things? What would it look like if I handled it this way or that way? Like you said, the different endings. If you want to learn this ending, you got to go there. But in real life, we can't. So all we can do is just keep pushing, and keep trying to learn from our experiences. And then a lot of times that could be hard because we don't know how to handle it emotionally or mentally. So there's things of that nature. I think people, even though we are humans, although a lot of people act like we're not, they act like we're robots. We have to learn how to handle disappointment and heartbreak and, all these different things that we think we're able to handle in the moment until it actually happens.
Right.
So, in the case of, you're trying to figure everything out in one time in your life, which is unrealistic. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
Um, how do you even like think to yourself, because my life is not exactly perfect because of how people's society standards are put on you. You got to look past the anxiety and the poster child for anxiety and imposter syndrome. It's just like it's crazy times. So
Yeah.
I think about all these things in my life. I'm always asking you questions because I'm trying to figure out what's the next step in my god darn life.
Well, the thing is that we can definitely, honestly, people will reach out to prophet psychics, people
Mhm.
like me, to gain some insight or some advice, but it can get really dangerous at times for your energy when you're dependent on always wanting to know what's the next move, because you have to decide what your path is going to be, and then you have to decide which steps you're going to take to that path. And so whenever
Mm.
you get like energy readers involved, and when you get like psychics, like, yeah, I have most people that will see me once a year, and they just want a recap of like, hey, what's gonna happen for the next year, what should I be looking forward to, or what are predictions. And then I do have people who are more anxious, like you're an anxious person, so you get freaked out by stuff, and then you just need like validation, right? It's not even
Mhm.
about psychic service, it's more like a validation.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of people like that, and I feel people that need that validation or that reassurance, it's more of this fear that they have towards failure, or fear towards falling, or fear towards poverty. These are real fears, right? And
Mhm.
so wanting the play by play of what should we expect in life, or what's going to play out for us, is a reassurance sign behind them that goes, all right, even though everything's crazy right now, there's hope. The psychic lady told me it's going to be okay.
I ain't gonna lie. That's the kind of shit I be needing. I be like, oh my god, let me just hit up Sam. Like,
Yeah. And there's
cause.
nothing wrong with that, honestly. There's nothing wrong with needing the validation, but do the work for yourself of look at your life,
Mhm.
figure out, where do I want to be? Location, self, whatever. Where do I want to be? Who am I trying to be? What am I striving for? And eliminate people on the outside that cause you fear of like failure or falling down, because that feeling comes from others, not from
Mhm.
self. Other people making you feel like you're a letdown, other people making you feel like you're disappointing them, other people making you feel like being worried about how people view you and how people see you. It's common and human. It's common.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
human feeling. It's real. And so my advice is, since we do not have a play by play of life, we don't. And even psychics, even people like me, we don't know everything. We don't know everything that's going to happen, because we're human too, and we're living this experience too. The whole purpose of
Mhm.
us coming down to this dimension, whether it be the third, the fourth, the fifth, whichever one, this dimension that we are on, the plane that we are, is like the heart plane, the empath plane. Everything of, you have to learn your heart in order to process your life and have everything you want. You have to honor and figure you out. And that's the whole reason of this life, is that we're not giving all the tools. It's like Naked and Afraid. They get dumped in the wild with nothing but their skin, right? And we're
Oh, I've
doing
never
that
seen
in
that
real
show.
life. We are doing that in real life, where it's like we are dumped here, and we have to figure it out, and we have no tools, and we have no resources, and we have to figure these things out. And like resources for self, not resources in life. Like we don't
Yeah.
have the skills to like manage our own mental health. We don't have the skills to accomplish big goals without like fear or falling into an emotional spin. So if
Mm.
we were to have a play by play of how it would work out, it could potentially be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything you just said makes a lot of sense. Like we said in the beginning of the conversation, like if we had a whole list sit in front of us, and we knew step by step everything that was going on. And if things didn't go, if you read the list and it showed in there a dark period of time, and you knew that already, that could really, first, it can make you angry, but it could also make
Right.
you very anxious. That
Not
part of
only
you,
that, but
yeah.
if you saw that dark period of time and your mind was like, you know what? I am going to avoid that. I'm going to do everything I can in my
Hmm.
power to avoid that. And then you couldn't avoid it and it happened
Yeah.
anyway. Whew.
Yeah, that could definitely put you in a darker place. So then that dark period lasts even longer because you're just like, well, dang, I tried to do everything I can to avoid this. Why is this still happening? Because that was always the plan. I always think to myself, and I know people have different thoughts and views on religion and spirituality, and you need to have a God in front of you. You need to be in church. I have God. I have
Yeah.
spirituality. I'm not overly religious, but what I will say is that before you even hit this earth, meaning like the doctor pulled you out your mama's stuff and made sure you was alive, God had already written your plan out for you. And
Right.
the only reason why we don't know these things is because, like you said, it would literally drive people crazy if they knew.
Right.
And I
They do.
know for
Yeah.
somebody like myself, like I am a very anxious person. I do deal with anxiety really bad. I do be wanting to know that plan. And I be asking
Yeah.
God all the time, what
But
is the plan now?
it's common for people to want to know that plan.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, if you think about having like a play by play and all the things that would play out in your life, but you had no choice but to go through these things for uh personal growth,
Yeah.
don't you think that would cause people on the other side of life, like people unaliving themselves, people not wanting to go through it, people not wanting to go through the process? Don't you think that like numbers like that would be different? And then if you, it just reminds me of Gotham City and no Batman. Like if you're giving everyone the key to be powerful without them doing any growth or any reflective um any reflection towards what they should be doing in life because
Hmm.
they have a play by play, that would make life a little bit, I guess, too robotic.
Too predictable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that people, like, if you knew, because like let's say that you would get a play by play, like let's play it a different scenario. Let's say that every step of the way you got like a little play by play of how that's gonna feed out. Wouldn't
Hmm.
it become anxious whenever you're meeting someone, they show you a play by play, like how they're going to fuck you over or how they're going to hurt you or how this person's going to play that game with you, and then your heart is like, I don't know who to trust, I don't know how to be. Wouldn't people get really crazy with each other by thinking that they can't trust anyone or they can't have no one in their life because everyone is a potential threat?
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess in that retrospect too, if you did know those type of things and you're able to avoid them, that could
What if
also,
what if you're not supposed to avoid them? What if it's part of your journey and you have a play by play of it and they show you exactly this is the person, but you have to do this?
yeah, that would definitely drive me crazy. That would drive me
Yeah.
crazy.
Like, let's say they gave you a window, but they didn't tell you when that window was coming, and they told you that you're supposed to be with this person, but then they didn't give you a little bit of the information. It's almost like, what if they breadcrumbed information to you? And it was like, this person gives your energy some type of like filling, and you're just like, I really like them. And then they're like, oh no, but he's gonna fuck you over. Knowing a lot of women and men these days who have oppositional defiance disorder, if something's telling you they're bad for you, you're going to be like, you can't tell me what to do, and you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, because that's what our brain is wired to. It's like when you're a kid and your parents tell you you better not do that, or when you're dating, you're like, you need to stay away from that boy. You ain't
Yeah.
gonna stay away from him because your parents told you not to. That's what you want to be. Yeah, I definitely see that because you have to go through it in order to get over it. You just
Yeah.
can't avoid certain things. Like in this place in my life right now, where I left my job in Albuquerque, thought I was going into something bigger, or something. I shouldn't say bigger, but in my eyes, I thought it would be better because I thought I was getting a combination of two worlds. And in that, a lot of stuff has happened. I was told I'm not going to be able to do any of those things, not do a podcast, not be on TV or anything. But if someone had told me in that same moment of the disappointment of where I'm working at, I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble when I go back to work if somebody sees this, but whatever. In the same moment of that, if somebody would have told me, oh, but you're also gonna lose two family members. Your cousin's gonna be killed at the beginning of the year, and your aunt's gonna die um, during the summer. If somebody told me all this stuff was happening at the same time, I would have been looking at them like, no, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. And when I say that, because you did predict that my aunt was gonna pass away. You did tell me that. You told me she was gonna have like a year, and then later on in the year, which was this year, because you told me this last year, she was gonna pass away. I'm about to start crying. But
That's
nothing
grief.
in the world. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's grief. Grief is real. It's okay. Just breathe. Just breathe. It's okay to be in this moment of pain when you lost someone close to your heart and in an empath mode, knowing and feeling their struggle. It's a very human thing. So don't ever apologize for your emotions with your grief, because grief is uncontrollable. We can't control that.
Which is another thing that's a part of that tutorial. If somebody had told me that, I would have looked at them like they were crazy. And even though you told me about my aunt, it still doesn't prepare you for when it actually
Oh,
does happen. You're never going to be
right.
prepared. So even if you have a list that tells you this is how your life is going to be, you're never truly prepared. You think you are, but you're not. You're not prepared because in that list, curveballs can still be thrown at you.
Right. And how would we even take on death if we knew exactly who was going to die in our life?
I don't even think we still be able to take it because you know what?
We couldn't, because we would do everything we could to change that or save them.
Yeah.
And that play by play would even give us our own demise. Do we want to know?
Yeah.
You
Right,
know?
exactly. Exactly. You said exactly what I was going to say. Even if we knew, we would try everything in our power because that's just human of us to try to stop that, to try to, like you said, like try to change it. You see it in movies all the time where I don't know if you watch anything with Marvel at all, but
I have in the past a few times.
okay, so one of the movies, or there was a certain part in the phase where they talk about this timeline. And in the timeline, all these different, matter of fact, it was in game. That's what they discuss it. And in Endgame, this is the follow up to Infinity War, where Thanos basically snaps his finger with the Infinity Stones, and half of the universe disappears. That's what happens. And you have 5 years go by. They pick up 5 years later in Endgame, and the first thing that they all come back together they want to do is go back in time. They want to fix the process so that they can get the Infinity Stones back and save everybody. Now, in reality, if we did that, a timeline would be messed up. In their case, it did not because they had different types of timelines, different different alternative versions of that timeline, so that other timelines are not necessarily affected, but at the same time they are, because now you've gone back and you change things when things are supposed to be the way they are.
Right.
So if we had that actual power to do that, the whole world would be messed up. Like
I
they,
know.
because everybody's reality is different. So
Right.
nobody's thing will look the same.
Right.
Whew, that was a moment.
It's fine to have those moments. It's real. It makes you a real human. I don't think people want to follow a podcast of robotic people. We're going to have range of emotion in episodes, and we're going to discuss things that are not easy for us, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And
Yeah.
in spirituality, we have to embrace the emotion because we're programmed to push it away.
Yeah. Especially in women. One of our, I want to say hacks. I don't think it's a hack, but I feel like we're kind of programmed in a way that even though we are emotional beings, which is nothing wrong with that, we're taught that we can't be too emotional because
Yeah,
then,
it's gross. It's too
yeah,
much.
it's too much. It's not, like it's just, I can't handle that. I don't have the bandwidth for it. But then, when we're too strong, I guess if that's a thing, now we're too masculine. We're not woman enough. We're it's just
Like,
like,
take a struggle.
and then add in, I hate bringing up race, but it's reality. Being a black woman, it makes it 10 times worse because we're not allowed.
Oh,
We're expected to just always be on 24/7, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I
yeah.
hate when people be like, well, you got to have a tough skin, you got to have a thick skin, and I'm just like, where
We're
in
not
my
all
life
built like that.
tutorial was that?
But we're not all built for that.
Exactly. Like that's not a part of who I am. Like I tell people all the time, that tough love shit does not work over here. I will ignore
Yeah.
you because I'm gonna have my emotions. I'm gonna have my feelings. That is a part of me, and that's why I always make jokes too, because sometimes it does get uncomfortable when you show your emotions or you share your emotions, and even
Right.
being a black woman, especially in certain spaces, you're just like, I feel like our life tutorial is a lot different than others, and I mean that by about black women, black men, non-black women, non-black men. Our life tutorial is way different, and the
I
things that
agree.
we have to do and how we have to be. Like there are days, and I guess it goes along with my mental health. I feel like I should be doing something from the moment I get up to the moment I go to sleep because that is a part of trying to build and go beyond being, I guess, the monolith that people try to make us be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel guilty if I relax. But when I look at what my life is, the reason why I am where I am right now is because I followed that rule for so long and it's
Right.
burnt me out. Nobody put
I
that in
think
my life
most
tutorial.
people are burnt out with how things have just been because everyone that I talk to is just exhausted.
Yeah, because the world is exhausting. But
Hmm.
and it's crazy. Like people that are in a certain successful part of their life, they tend to shame others that may not be in that same place right now. Make them feel bad and say, "Well, you need to be. Why are you relaxing? Why are you taking a break? You need to be working. You don't haven't earned the right to relax." And I'm like, that that's dumb. I
Right.
have, because I have done a lot of stuff, and I've worked myself to the point where I am burnt out, and that's
Right.
why I'm currently like, by the time this by the time this airs, I'll be back at work. But that's why I've been on medical leave for the past month. My mental
Yeah.
health, because nobody talks to you about these things, is still a taboo. And even like knowing how long I've had depression and anxiety since I was a teenager, nobody talked about these things.
Right.
So like this is what my life tutorial has been, to just keep working until I became successful, then maybe all that will go away. But nobody told me in that tutorial that that's not reality. So
Yeah.
I've been suffering and making it worse and trying to hide it. And over the years, you can no longer hide it. Now
Right.
you become like what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say monster. Monster's not the word, but like it's like people like, oh my god, you can't be around her because she might, people act weird. People
Yeah.
say they act like, oh, you can talk to me anytime and this, that, and the third, but nobody really has the bandwidth because they have their own stuff they have to deal with too.
I feel this year especially, I feel like everyone's just been so dragged out and exhausted, and it's like, what's next on the bingo card? I think if we were to help others with this episode, it would be to acknowledge that we're all kind of in a crazy path right now. We're
Yeah.
all kind of going through trials and tribulations, and we all have life stuff. But if we were to leave any impression on a collective group of people, it would be like, you know what? It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to take time away from work. It's okay to acknowledge that you're struggling. It's okay. Sit in that moment and problem solve what you need in your life to
Mm-hmm.
get out of it, because it stands in you, it stands with you. So if you're unhappy with your partnership, problem solve that. Is it unhappiness because of childhood traumas? Is it unhappiness because this person is a repeat offender? Is it problems because communication is bad? Anything can be fixed if it's worth it. If it's in your career life, if you have melancholy, why are you staying? If you are unhappy there, then it's time to make movement, growth, growing yourself to push into something that you're really wanting. Anything's possible. We as humans have shown with science and with energy work that anything is utterly possible for us to accomplish if
Mm-hmm.
we allow ourselves to do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
the message is like, yeah, I know we don't have a play by play. If we did have a play by play, what's your opinion on what would you do? Would you go backwards? Would you come back to this plane? Would you skip this life out? Would you still go through it? What would you do? And that's the whole purpose of this episode, is like, if you had a play by play, what would you do? And we want feedback. We want people to reach out and say, hey, I listened to your episode on the play by play, and if I had a choice, blah blah blah, because then we can discuss it. We have more discussion around
yeah.
real people going through real experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we all need to share what our life's plan was for us,
Mhm.
or just kind of get an idea, so that we can say, oh well, we all are in the same boat, or on the other hand, like, oh well, maybe if we pray for this person, maybe things will get a little bit better. Um, it's just because sometimes prayer is what you need more than advice. And sometimes advice ain't what you got, what you need in your life. You need prayer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like our all everybody's life tutorial is different, and how you work that out, how you use that, how you do that, it's all up to you, like you said. And I think that's something that I'm learning right now, because my life tutorial did not show me that I would be sitting out of work for a month, because of basically a mental health breakdown. uh, and you don't want to let it get this far. Like, when I talked to my therapist, she told me so many people have been in the same boat. And like you said, if it gets to a point where you're unhappy with your life, when you're unhappy with your job or your situation in a total, you got to make, ironically, you got to make a plan so that you
Yeah.
can move forward. You can't. What I used to do in my plans is not make plans. When I was tired of a situation, a job or anything, or I was tired of a city, I made a decision. I'm moving. I don't know how I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it, but I'm getting out of here. And this is when it's happening. So either you jump on board or I'm leaving you behind. But
Right.
now, at my, I know I just turned 40 like a month ago, but I'm not even going to say my age. But now in my mental state, I realize that making those type of plans is not really a good plan. Um, you have to really sit down, like you said, and you got to figure
Gotta save
out.
your money.
You got to say, number one, save your money. As my daddy said, save your money. Ain't gonna tell me how to save it, where to save it, how much to save it. Just save your money. Um, you gotta save your money, but you also need to figure out different things. Like right now, I hate when people ask me, do I love living in Las Vegas? Las Vegas is cool. I'm not gonna hate on the city. It's a great city to live in if you like partying, if you're young, and you like the lifestyle. For me, I know I want more. I want to get married. I want to try to have kids. I want to have a more stable life. I don't feel like Las Vegas is that for me. So now I'm like looking at, where can I move to? I also think about my dad. My dad turns 80 next year. I need to be closer to him. So now I'm making plans. I ain't wrote them down yet. I'm trying to find a second job so I can save money so that I can move back towards the east, because I know eventually that's where I need to be, because my dad's going to need me. Like I know these things. And so And now it's the process of making plans. So my
Right.
life tutorial right now has changed up a little bit. You know,
And don't be your worst enemy. A lot of times we are the culprit of why plans are not working out because fear of failure or
mm-hmm,
imposter syndrome or whatever reason that you don't think you can. Don't ever think that someone, something, someplace is going to hold you down because you're accepting that to hold you down.
yeah, yeah,
We gotta make that plan like J Bell said, and we gotta move forward, and we have to paint that direction and pave that road. You gotta do the work.
exactly. And don't,
Save your
and you
money.
know what's, save your money. And you know what's funny too in part of your life tutorial? If you don't like being somewhere, don't be afraid to leave. Because
Right.
this is what I truly feel. If your body is misaligned and your nervous system is deregulated, how mine has been, that is God, that is a spiritual being talking to you, and they telling you you need to get. Excuse me, they're probably gonna have an explicit thing on here. Get the fuck out of there.
Right. Just
Get,
like with women who stay with a man too long that they are
mm-hmm,
unhappy with and the body starts to reject that man.
exactly,
Same thing
exactly.
in life. You will start feeling rejected in certain
Mm-hmm.
zones because you're like, all right, this is not playing out.
Exactly, because it does not happen not for like for any reason. There's a
Right.
reason why your body is out of sync, why your mind is out of sync, why you're sitting there
Yep.
disassociating with what's going on around you, because that's the way of your spiritual being talking to you and saying to you, hey, no, it's time to move on. You know,
Right.
you just you got to figure out the rest. You got to make moves so that you know don't end up taking a medical leave or FMLA from
There's
work.
nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah,
nothing
I
wrong with
mean,
that.
and I understand that this is my first time ever doing it, and this was the most uncomfortable part of my like life because I'm
Mm-hmm.
so used to just moving to get to the next part that
Well,
I, like you said, like we talked offline, like I had to slow down.
Well, we have to be okay with it sometimes because if you don't, your body's going to force you to one way or another, whether it be physically or mentally, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be forced to sit out. You're going to be benched. So we have to listen to ourselves and we have to follow through with what's right for us. And
Exactly.
in our closing of this topic, don't be so harsh on your life. Don't be so harsh on you. We don't have a play by play, but we can write our story. We can decide which direction we want to take and who we want to be and where we want to go. And that's more impactful than being shown the prophecy of what can come is we are the directors of our own life. We can write that story. How are you going to write that story? And what are you going to do to get there?
Yeah, exactly. Everything that Sam just said. I'm gonna let her close this out.
So we would really love it for you guys to share our podcast, share with your friends, your family, even a person that you know who's kind of dealing with certain scenarios that we are discussing. We want to help and we want to show you guys that psychic, non-psychic, we all go through stuff. We all have things going on and just put some knowledge on you and empowerment and spiritual growth. If you have a story or something that you want us to go over, reach out. Hit up J Bell. Tell her, hey, I would really love you to cover X, Y, and Z, and we will cover it.
Yeah, I put the email is in the YouTube description. jbellmedia at gmail.com. Email us your topics, or if you have a question for Sam, we'll answer it in the episode. We'll probably do it at the end of it, like a Q&A if you have something. Um, yeah, we want to hear. You want to hear like your thoughts, share your stuff, share what your life tutorial would be, so that we can do an additional episode of this because this is actually a really good topic to talk about because we all have
Mhm.
different life tutorials for ourselves. So,
Right, right. Yeah,
all right,
don't
guys.
don't hesitate to message, and I hope everyone is doing good out there and stay safe and be blessed.
Yes, be blessed. Be blessed. Till next time. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.